Well, welcome back to our pre-calculus summer video series, lesson number 4. Today we are going to look at solving quadratics by graphing. So a quadratic, if you remember, is anything in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals y. Okay. Now, when we talk about solving a quadratic, we're actually looking to see where that quadratic crosses the x-axis. I could have two solutions, or I could have one solution. So one solution would look something like this. Right? Or we could have no solutions, which means it doesn't cross the axis. And of course, we could have a quadratic that was going the other way, so it could have two solutions. It could have one solution, or it could have no solutions. Okay, so when we talk about solving a quadratic, we're talking about how many times it crosses the x-axis, and we try to calculate where it crosses. So let's just jump right in and look at some examples. So let's see here. Let me see if I can get a couple good ones here. Okay, so let's look at 4x squared minus 20x plus 17 equals, oh, that's a bad one to start with. I'm sorry. That's a bad one to start with. Let me start with a different one. Let's look at 4x squared minus 8x plus 3 equals 0. So I want to look at that quadratic equation. I know it's quadratic because it's in that form. Since it's quadratic, I know it's going to be a parabola. Okay. Now, before we start graphing it, we want to just kind of get a visual in our mind so that we can choose the appropriate window on our calculator. Since this number is positive, I know it's opening up. This number, if you remember, tells me where it's crossing the y-axis. So let's go to our calculator. And I'm going to talk you through this as though you didn't know anything. Okay? We're going to go to our calculator and we're going to press the y equals button. Anytime we want to graph something, this is where we go. I'm going to type in the equation. So it's 4x. X is up here, just to the right of the alpha button. So we're going to press x squared. So squared is down here. Okay, if you can see my little yellow circle, above and to the left of the number 7. So 4x squared minus 8x plus 3. Okay, now I'm going to go to my window. The window is just to the right of the y equals button. Okay, now in the window I have an x min, x max. This stands for x scalar. Y min, y max, y scalar. Those are the 6 things I have to concern myself. So the x min and x max. So when I'm graphing, if I was manually graphing it, okay, I would have to decide how much each mark on my x-axis counted for and how far to go. So here, right, this means I'm going from -4 to +4, and each mark counts as 1. So if I go to my calculator, my minimum value was negative, so I'm going to make this a negative 10. So my lowest value on my x-axis will be negative 10. Press enter. And then my highest value on the x-axis will be positive 10. That's typically your standard window. Okay, we can start with that and then we'll make adjustments if we find that we need to. Okay, the x scalar, that refers to how much each mark stands for. And in our example, we're going to have each one count as 1. Now we're going to make our y-axis exactly the same. We're going to go from negative 10 to positive 10, and each mark represents 1. Okay, up here on the right-hand corner, I'm going to press graph, and there we have our graph. Now the window is perfectly fine. I can see both places that it crosses the x-axis. It crosses right here, and it crosses right here. Okay. Notice, by the way, that it's crossing the y-axis at 3. Okay, so now that I've graphed it, I need to figure out what these values are, because this is the solution. There's one solution, and there's the other solution. It's where it's crossing the x-axis. So I have to figure that out. What we do not want to do is trace, because tracing it is going to get me close, but not exactly. So if I press trace and use my right arrow, notice this value right here, where that blink is, right? That's where x is equal to 0.4545 and y is equal to 0.19. So when it crosses the x-axis, what should the y value be? It should be 0, right? Look at this. This is negative 1, 0, negative 2, 0, negative 3, 0, negative 4, 0, right? 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0. Where it crosses the x-axis, the y value is 0. So I'm close, but it's not quite. Now if I press this arrow again, I've skipped right over where y equals 0. See, y equals negative 0.37. So I do not want to use the trace feature. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go into the calculate, which is above the trace, right there. I'm going to do second, calculate. And I'm going to calculate the 0, which is option number 2. Okay, when you press that, the calculator is asking for a left bound. See down the bottom here? Right? It's asking for a left bound. What the calculator is doing is it wants to know what part of the graph we're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to press enter, and I just have to make sure that when I press enter that I am to the left of that point right there. That's the point that I'm trying to calculate. So I need to make sure that I'm to the left of that. Once I press enter, it changed, and now it says right bound. So now I'm going to use my right arrow over here, and I'm going to press it, and every time I press it, my cursor moves. I'm going to move it to the right of this point. It doesn't matter how far to the right, but I have to move it to the right. So I'm going to press enter. Okay, now I have this space in here that the calculator is looking at. The next thing it says is to give it a guess. Okay, so I'm just going to move closer to that spot. So I'm using my left arrow. Okay, and I'll just put it right there. And when I press enter, it gives me the 0. When y is equal to 0, notice that, right? X is equal to 1/2. So that's one of my solutions. Got a bunch of junk on the page here now, huh? Let me get all this out of the way. So one of my solutions is x equals 1/2. Now I know from the graph that there are 2 solutions. So I need to calculate this other solution right here. So we're going to do it again. Second, calculate. And we're going to choose number 2 because we're calculating the 0. It's asking for a left bound. So I need to be to the left of that point right there. So I'm going to press enter. And notice how it changed down here. Okay, now it says right bound. So I'm going to move my cursor to the right of this point here, because this is the point that I'm referring to. And I'll press enter. Now it wants a guess. So I'm going to move my cursor somewhere closer to that point and press enter. And then again, notice y equals 0, x equals 1.5 or 1.5. So my other solution is 1.5. Those are the two solutions to that quadratic equation. Okay, let's look at another example. Let's look at 2x squared plus 5x equals 3. So this is also a quadratic equation. And we're going to solve this 2 different ways. I'm going to solve it exactly the way it is. I'm also going to solve it by setting it equal to 0. So I would subtract 3 from both sides. I'm going to solve it like that. Okay. So the first one, solving it like this, we're going to put this side in y1 and we're going to put this side in y2. We're looking to see where they're equal. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go back to y equals, and I have 2x squared plus 5x. Right? That's the left side. And then the right side, so we're going to put it in y2, we're just going to type in 3. I'm looking to see where they're equal. So I'm going to go ahead and graph it. I'm going to leave my window alone, and I'll graph it. Okay. I'm looking to see where this blue line is equal to the red line. So that means I'm looking for where they intersect, right there and right there. So this time I'm going to use a different method because I did not have my equation equal to 0 like it is here. This time I'm looking to see where y1 is equal to y2. So we're going to do a calculate intersect. So we're going to choose option 5. And here the calculator wants to know which curve we're talking about. It's going to default, and you can see what it defaults to up here, right? It's going to default to my y1, and that's okay. I'm going to press enter. And then it wants to know the second curve. Well, it automatically changed it to y2 for us. So that's fine. I'll press enter. Now it's asking me to guess. So the reason it's doing that is because there are more than one point of intersection, and it doesn't know yet. It hasn't run through its algorithm. So it's always going to ask us to guess so that we can let it know what part of the graph we want to know the intersection of. So I'm going to use my cursor and I'm going to move it over to that point right there where they intersect and press enter. And it tells me that the point of intersection is x equals 1/2, y equals 3. Well, when we're solving the equation, it's the x value that we care about. So here we get x equals 1/2. Okay, we need to do it again because it actually intersects in 2 places. So we'll do calculate intersect, number 5 again. It's asking for the first curve, and look up here, you can see what the curve is, so press enter. It's asking for the second curve. And see, this is so helpful because it's almost hard to tell which curve it's highlighting here. So look up here so you can see which one. So we'll press enter. Now we need to guess. Well, I'm looking for this intersection, so I need to move my cursor over to that point, and I'll press enter. And it tells me the x value is -3. So x equals -3. Those are my two solutions. Okay, so I used the calculate intersect method for this. I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to use the calculate zero method. And I'm going to use this equation because it equals 0. So we're going to calculate 0. So I'm going to go back to my graph, my y equals, and we're going to put 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Okay, let me clear this one. All right, I'm going to graph it. Okay, now we're going to calculate where it crosses the x-axis. So we do calculate 0. It's asking for a left bound, so I need to be to the left of that point. So I'll press enter. And then it's asking for a right bound, so I need to be to the right of that point. So I'll press enter. And then it wants a guess, so we're going to move closer and press enter. And sure enough, I got 1/2. That was one of my solutions, 1/2 right there. So we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to calculate this 0. So we'll do calculate 0. We have to move it all the way over because we need to be to the left of that point. So we're going to move it all the way over. Okay, that looks good. And press enter. So see how my little dotted line is to the left of that point. Now it wants me to move it to the right. Press enter, and sure enough, now that dotted line is to the right of that point. And then we need a guess, so we'll just move it closer and press enter. And there you have x equals -3. Okay, so I've shown you two ways of calculating, the solution to that quadratic equation. Okay, now it doesn't matter what form the quadratic equation's in. You don't have to do a ton of work with it. So for instance, if I have x times 3x minus 7 equals 6. So I know this is quadratic because if I distribute that x, I'm going to get a 3x squared. And that's all I really need to know. I don't actually need to distribute it and simplify it and all. I'm going to put it in my calculator just like that. So if I go to my calculator, go to y equals, I'm going to put x times 3x minus 7. Okay, now this one, remember, just like the other one we did, this one does not equal 0, and I'm not going to worry about making it equal 0. Because I'm just going to put this whole side in y1 and then this whole side in y2, and what am I going to do? I'm going to calculate the intersection to see where those two are equal. So in y2 we'll put 6. We're going to graph it. Okay, so now I need to calculate these 2 points of intersection. So we'll do calculate number 5, intersect. Right, it wants the first curve and it's already defaulting there. So we'll press enter. In the second curve, it defaulted to the second curve, so we'll press enter. And now it wants a guess. So I'll just move it closer to one of the points and press enter. Now we have a non-terminating decimal, basically, -0.66666666. So I know that that is -2/3. Let me see if it'll convert for me. If I do math and choose option number 1, convert to fraction. No, it won't do that. Okay. So what I have to do then is I have to go out here to my main screen, right? And now I'm going to say choose math convert it to fraction, and he gives me negative 2/3. Okay, so that's a little bit cumbersome, but that's okay. So we've got x equals negative 2/3, right? And we want that to be in fraction form, not in decimal form, because what did we do here? We had to round. And we don't want to round with our answer if possible. So if you can, put it in fraction form. And let's see, let's do it again. So we're going to do calculate intersection, first curve, second curve, and now I need to move it over here, closer to the point of intersection, right here, and we'll press enter, and we get 3. So x equals 3. There's my 2 solutions. Okay, let me give you another example. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find the right one. Let me just pause for a minute. Okay, so let's look at another equation. Let's look at x squared plus 8x minus 2 equals 0. So we're going to solve this equation graphically. So we'll go to our graphing calculator, and we're going to clear the contents that are there, right? I just press clear. All right, so we have x squared plus 8x minus 2. So let's graph that. Okay, now I can't see the bottom of this parabola, but it doesn't matter. If I'm looking for the solution, I'm looking to see where it's crossing the x-axis. So I'm looking for these 2 points. So what do? We do calculate 0. So I need to go to the left of that point. So I'm just going to move it a little bit to the left and press enter. And then I need to go to the right of that point and press enter. And then it's asking for a guess. So we get, now in this case we're going to have to round because this is not a decimal that will convert to a fraction easily. So we're going to put it 0.243. We're going to round to 3 places unless you're told differently. 0.243. Right? X equals 0.243. Right? Now let's do it again to find this 0. Calculate 0. We're going to move it all the way over. Now, notice when I press my left arrow, I've lost the cursor, but I'm looking at these x and y values, right? So, see right now, x is negative 0.757 and y is negative 7.4. So I'm just going to kind of keep watching it until that y starts coming back up. See, y is negative 11. 11.8, negative 12.5, negative 13.2, negative 13.8, 14.7, 15, right? It's going way down there, right? Negative 16, negative 17, 17.8, right? Oh, now it's starting to come back up again, right? So that means it went all the way down here and turned around and it's coming back up. So I'm just going to keep pressing my left arrow because I need to get to the left of this point right here. So there you go. There's my guy. Okay, keep on moving. Now we're to the left of this point. So we'll press enter. Now I need to get to the right of it and press enter. So now my point is between those 2 dotted lines. Now it's asking for a guess. Press enter. So we have negative 8.243. negative 8.243. There's my solution to that quadratic equation. Okay, so in the description section of your video, right below the video here, I have two links. One link is to a worksheet, and the other link is to the calculator tutorial. Okay, please complete the worksheet and make sure that you bring it in the first week of school.